Hey guys, Zane from the Infinite Jukebox here with another quick album review, and today I wanted to talk about the new Kylie Minogue record, Tension. Get it? Because it was waiting for me to say the title. It was tension. It was like tension. I was creating tension. Despite being pop royalty in her own way, Kylie Minogue has never really received the constant critical praise of someone like Madonna, nor has she really gotten the same international success as another pop star like, say, Christina Aguilera. But nonetheless, she is still Australia's true queen of pop, with pretty much no other artist able to even challenge that title, let alone take it from her. Her 2020 album Disco marked a major comeback for Kylie Minogue in terms of just quality alone, and ultimately it seemed like a decade of fairly middling dance pop releases had come to an end, that she was finally back in experimental form that we arguably hadn't seen since albums like Fever, for example. And as such, any follow-up to Disco, no matter what creative direction it took, was expected to have the same energy, the same passion, and the same immediacy. Tension is far from being just an average dance pop album, but at the same time, it kind of manages to fail and just fall short in its own unique way, and I guess I kind of have to commend it for that. Upon first glance, Tension seems to find itself heavily influenced by a lot of classic house sounds, and that's an initially pretty intriguing concept overall. I mean, after all, again, disco really managed to take a lot of classic, you may have guessed, disco sounds and transform them into something distinctly modern and fresh, while still kind of paying a nice homage to classic sounds of the genre. And you know what, the album opening track, Padam Padam, although definitely overly murky and a bit misdirected in terms of the utilization of those house sounds, is still a pretty intriguing track overall. It definitely implies a sort of creative direction that was unexpected from Minogue at this point. Unfortunately, it does feel like the people behind the record, be that Minogue or otherwise, they just don't really have the guts to lean into these influences a little bit more. There's never a full embrace of all of these electronic sounds, just sort of tidbits sprinkled throughout. In fact, the vast majority of the record feels like pretty run-of-the-mill synth pop in terms of instrumentals alone, with tracks like Things We Do for Love just not feeling unique at all conceptually, especially in execution. There's also the issue of Kylie Minogue's vocal performances here, which isn't something that I'd think I'd be saying about a Kylie Minogue record, but here I am. Although she has proven time and time again that even on her weakest releases she can be a competent performer and vocalist, and that on her best releases she is extraordinarily charismatic, it really does feel like Tension is kind of phoned in from a vocal standpoint. It kind of just seems like Minogue wanted to go into the studio and just knock out a handful of songs about partying, sex, and love, and then just kind of go home and get some food to eat. That feels like that was about the extent of vocal recordings here. I mean, it really just sounds like she doesn't really want to be there, and a relatively short runtime definitely exemplifies that, as well as lukewarm vocals being combined with lukewarm production. That certainly doesn't help. There's no solid backdrop for otherwise mediocre vocal work here. I think it's really ironic how for an album called Tension, there's quite literally no tension in a single second of this. I mean, as I mentioned at the start, a lot of this record feels kind of dense, thick, and murky for no real reason. There's certainly no tension being provided by it, and ultimately it prevents any possibly okay instrumentals from shining, and even then it doesn't feel like there's much hope in that regard. But my point about the production still stands. Everything just kind of comes across as awkward, and that's kind of surprising considering who's behind this record. I mean, you have an industry veteran and somewhat of a legend in Biff Stannard, who is involved with the rise of artists such as the Spice Girls, for example, as well as Icona Pop and Wiz Khalifa production sideman Duck Blackwell. I mean, there was a lot of potential here for some excellent instrumentation, some excellent soundscapes and auditory qualities, and just none of it is achieved. This should be a fun, punchy record, and instead it feels like poorly mixed and produced synth instrumentals and a vocalist who just doesn't really care about what she's doing, which is such a parallel to disco in 2020, which was the absolute reverse. In all honesty, the performances are middling, the creative direction, it's lacking, the adventurousness is not there at all in any sense of the term, and the production is surprisingly underwhelming, especially considering who was involved with the making of Tension. And as a whole, even if Tension isn't the worst album ever made or anything like that, it is a wildly disappointing one where virtually nothing manages to come together. I'm going to give this record 2 stars out of 5. And with that being said, that is the end of this quick album review. I've been Zane from the Infinite Jukebox. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.